Good afternoon and welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Thank you for joining me for our TJPS special coverage. Today, the National Guard has arrived in the state of California after last night Donald Trump signed a presidential memorandum federalizing the Guard, overstepping Governor Gavin Newsom to do so. I've been following the protest in LA very closely. I'm actually going to be speaking in just a moment with a protester who was wounded yesterday after being hit with a concussion grenade. But before we get to that, I want to lay out some context here because I feel like it's important in terms of tying this story together. And basically, Los Angeles is no stranger to resistance. Last night, I covered the La Placita immigration raids back in the 30s and how that sparked massive pushback and vociferous condemnation. After that, it was the Zoot Suit riots in 1943 in LA. This occurred amid simmering racial tensions between Mexican Americans and white communities. A U.S. naval officer attacked young Mexican Americans, telling them they were unpatriotic. Police arrested the victims, not the attackers. They arrested the Mexican Americans, not their white counterparts, who stoked and incited this racial violence. The Watts Rebellion of 1965 happened after 21-year-old Marquette Fry was arrested by a white police officer on suspicion of driving while drunk. The opposition to that was major, lasting 6 days, leaving 34 dead and $40 million in damage. The McCone Commission report, which was later released about the outrage that ensued after, essentially it warned of future unrest if poverty and racial discrimination from police continued. The Chicano blowouts in 1968, when thousands of Mexican American students walked out of East LA high schools demanding better education, bilingual instructions, and more Mexican American teachers. 13 activists were arrested. They were known as the East LA 13. It was one of the largest student-led protests in U.S. history. In 1991, this 15-year-old black girl named Latasha Harlins was fatally shot by a Korean-American gas station owner. She was accused of attempting to steal orange juice. However, she did have the money to buy it in her hand, but after a scuffle in leaving the juice on the counter as Latasha turned to leave, she was shot in the back of the head. Just 15 years old. There was visceral resistance to that fatal shooting. After an all-white jury acquitted 3 of the 4 police officers who viciously beat Rodney King, as seen in this video. Conspicuously here, as you can see, despite this video being presented in court, they were still acquitted. Enraged LA residents took to the streets to protest, and riots also ensued as clashes with the police escalated. President George H.W. Bush actually invoked the Insurrection Act at the time, and federal troops were sent into LA. The city of Los Angeles is no stranger to resistance, standing up for what is right in the face of injustice, inequality, and a system that favors white supremacy over homogeneous equality. A system that incessantly and disproportionately targets marginalized communities and opposition groups. When it comes to the resistance movement, LA has always been on the front lines. Now we are watching the same, as ICE conducted multiple raids targeting immigrants in the community. LA residents are out in the streets protesting, but they are being met with force. When Donald Trump signed a presidential memorandum last night to federalize the California National Guard, it made headlines everywhere. This is the front page of the Washington Post. Trump orders National Guard to LA after protests erupt over ICE raids. This is Reuters. This is the Free Press Enterprise out of California. This is the LA Times. National Guard to be sent to LA amid clashes. Newsom calls Hegseth's threat of Marines deranged. As you watch the scenes coming out of LA with the National Guard presence, I think it's important to remember 2020 when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. If you recall, Donald Trump, president at the time, ordered the streets in D.C. in front of the historic St. John's Episcopal Church cleared out so that he could stand in front of it holding a Bible upside down in a photo op. We know that according to his own defense secretary at the time, Mark Esper, that Trump wanted the protesters shot. In the book A Sacred Oath, Trump directly asked, quote, "Can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something." Donald Trump has never hidden his disdain for the Constitution or for democracy. Since starting and launching his political career back in 2015, he has had a visceral hatred for the Constitution of this country, disregard for the rule of law, absolutely no respect for the Constitution of this country, and believes that we should go and do things the other way. And he has aligned his people. He has aligned himself with people who also do agree with that, essentially, that the United States should no longer be a democratic republic. Instead, we should embrace a dictatorship. But it's also what we're dealing with here, the real live question of if our military is actively going to go out, be deployed against the citizens of this country, and if they are going to then use force against the citizens of this country on direct orders from the President of the United States, who is acting in a way that is dictatorial. I want you to watch this footage here. This is an exchange back in January of this year between Hawaii Democrat Senator Mazie Hirono and Pete Hegseth, who at the time was, at his confirmation hearings to become the Secretary of Defense. And I want you to watch this because he's asked about that moment, about those 2020 protests when Trump effectively wanted the protesters to be shot. He's asked about this, and watch what he says here.
While you have made that commitment, you will not commit to resigning if you drink on the job. As Secretary of Defense, you will swear an oath to the Constitution and not an oath to any man, woman, or president. Correct?
Senator, on multiple occasions, including as a young second lieutenant, I have sworn an oath to the Constitution,
yes.
and I'm proud to do so. Yes, ma'am.
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
Would
events,
you carry out an order to shoot protesters in the legs?
I saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence, set the church on fire, and destroy a statue.
That sounds to me that you will comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg. Moving on. President-elect has attacked our allies.
You notice how he didn't push back? He did not push back there. Would you comply with orders to shoot protesters if Donald Trump ordered you to do so? Would you comply with orders to have the military shoot protesters? He did not push back there. And now he, former Fox News host, is the Secretary of Defense. He is over the armed forces in the United States. So that's why it was quite unsettling last night when he tweeted essentially that the U.S. Marines in California are on high alert and that they could be mobilized as well into the city of LA. Deployed against civilians. The U.S. Marines being deployed on U.S. soil against U.S. civilians. Think about what that means here. I mean, it was not hyperbolic for General Mark Milley to warn here to our military, to our troops, to remember your oath. Because you have a fascist coming into office. Remember your oath.
I'm deeply honored to have worn the cloth of this nation for 43 and a half years. And I'm humbled to have served as the 20th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But today, it's not about anyone up here on this stage. It's not about the President, the Secretary of Defense, me, CQ. It's not about us. It's about something much larger than all of us. It's about our democracy. It's about our republic. We are unique among the world's armies. We are unique among the world's militaries. We don't take an oath to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it.
Once again, that was General Mark Milley speaking, giving a speech, telling troops to remember their oath here. We are contending with a lot as a country right now. I mean, this is the scene right now in Los Angeles, looking like a war zone. Just look at those scenes there. You have troops on the street, civilians protesting. Yesterday, a Black Hawk helicopter arrived at a Homeland Security office with loads of ammunition and explosive devices. Democratic Congresswoman Nanette Berrigan told CNN today that she has been told by ICE, essentially, that they will be there for 30 days. They will be in Los Angeles for 30 days. There is now a campaign underway to push them out completely. In addition to the LAPD refusing to cooperate with ICE, the LA County Sheriff, Robert Luna, is also following suit. They will both not cooperate with ICE's mass deportation efforts. Midas Touch is reporting today that ICE is in Pasadena, California, currently positioned on the rooftop of the Marriott AC Hotel by Earth Cafe. I want to also essentially show you what's been going on in LA in terms of Tom Homan, Donald Trump's border czar, essentially saying that the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, as well as the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, potentially could be arrested, threatening to arrest them there as the situation continues to intensify between the federal government and the city of Los Angeles. Once again, the National Guard did not need to be sent to LA. These are peaceful protests. But essentially, they have mobilized, they have sent the National Guard to LA, and this is Tom Homan saying that for the Democrats, if you stand in our way, if you try to stop what's going on here, you just may be arrested.
I would think every elected governor, every elected mayor, number one responsibility is to remove public safety threats from their communities. That's what ICE is trying to do, but they're not helping.
There have been threats, previously that if you stand in the way of your enforcement operations, you could be subject potentially to arrest. Are you saying that about Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom? Are they at risk of being arrested?
I'll say it about anybody. You cross that line, it's a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement from doing their job.
And that is key right there.
So once again, that is Tom Homan, the border czar, threatening to arrest the governor of California, as well as the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. I mean, this is a crazy situation, completely out of control. Though not incredulous, because we know that this president has dictatorial agendas. We know that he has been itching to invoke the Insurrection Act or to declare martial law or to send in the military against the troops against the citizens of this country. This is like, as a reporter, this is almost like the 2020 moment when those Black Lives Matter protests were happening. We've seen this in Portland, Oregon. Again, troops, masked federal agents being used to go after people of this country who are simply exercising their freedom of speech, their right to protest, their right to express their grievances against the government that is in power. That is what separates us apart from an authoritarian regime and a democratic republic. Are we going to risk losing those rights, or are we going to continue to fight back? Yesterday, we witnessed law enforcement attacking protesters in Los Angeles. This is footage here of Ali Berrigan, a local protester running away from law enforcement as tensions escalated.
Currently in Paramount, super peaceful protest, right guys? There's no violence going on. This is what we're greeted with. Where's our right to protest? This is our first constitutional right. We are peacefully protesting. There's no violence going on, and yet they're choosing to do violence towards us. We are just standing by our brothers and sisters, and here they are. This is what they're doing.
Joining me now for the interview is Ali Berrigan. She is a Los Angeles resident who was at the ICE protest yesterday and was wounded. Ali, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So what was the scene like on the ground yesterday before things turned violent with law enforcement attacking you guys?
Honestly, it was pretty peaceful. I know that at first, people were vocally just stating how unhappy they were with the whole situation, but it never got to a point where people were aggressive or people were pushing or shoving police officers or even ICE agents. We actually were quite far away from ICE agents. It's a main street that we were on. And most of us were across the street, so we weren't even really near them. And so I know a lot of people who were there protesting with me. They were trying to keep the peace. I don't think any of us wanted it to escalate to a point where any of us would get hurt. But it just is really unfortunate that it did take that turn.
Now, per the video that you did post on TikTok, you were wounded. How have you been since? I know you've been at home.
I've been okay. My back does hurt. It's very much bruised. It's swollen. I can't really like lay on it. And when I want to get on my side, I have to like lift myself up. But just trying to take it day by day. That's what we can do right now.
Are you concerned about the deployment of the National Guard to LA, as essentially this is going to escalate tensions with peaceful protesters?
Most definitely. I think that honestly, they're giving a really mixed message. In the beginning of the year, they were here in LA helping residents and ensuring their safety with the fires that happened. And now here they are during these protests trying to keep safety. And it's just like, well, which message is it? Are you here to help us or are you here against us? A lot of us are protesting for the rights of immigrants and also just to uphold our Constitution. So we just kind of feel like I said, what side are you? You were here helping us, and now we're just trying to uphold our Constitution, and it almost feels like you're against us.
What have you been hearing from, I guess, some of your friends in the community, as well as other, protesters who are planning on mobilizing even more as this continues?
I think a lot of people, because of yesterday's protest, are afraid to go out and speak their minds. But also, I'm trying to encourage everyone, and this isn't just for my friends, but just the public. We shouldn't let them silence our voices. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to do by scaring us and shooting us with rubber bullets and tear gas. I think they're really trying to keep us contained and not speak out on what they're doing. So I think that's kind of where everyone is at right now, especially in Paramount. I'm from Paramount. I've lived here for the last 10 years. Everyone in this community is just so tight knit. And, this house that we live in is generational. My boyfriend's mom lived here, and, it's a community. It's a really tight knit community. So I think there's just this sense of fear of not wanting to speak out, but also anger. Everyone is mad about what's happening.
Once again, my guest is Allie Berrigan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The Jeremiah Patterson Show is an independent news media platform. If you want to see more special reports like this, please consider becoming a paid subscriber to my Substack at TJPS News. When you become a paid subscriber, you'll get immediate access to exclusive content, opinion pieces, the upcoming Resistance podcast, and The More You Know, a series focused on diving deeper behind the headlines with historical context. One viewer who upgraded said, quote, "Your show is insightful, thought-provoking, and engaging. You shed light on key issues, inspire conversations, and tell impactful stories. Your passion and dedication shine through in every piece, keeping me informed and inspired," said Dr. Lisa. "I do this because it matters, because the investigative journalism is imperative, and most of all, I'm unabashed and unafraid to tell the truth." Upgrade now from free to paid for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. Welcome back. We're following that breaking news out of California as the National Guard is now advancing, essentially pushing protesters back. This is from the governor of California posting this on his we're going to call it Twitter, goodness. The letter is signed by every single Democratic governor in the country. It reads here, quote, "President Trump's move to deploy California's National Guard is an alarming abuse of power. Governors are the commanders in chief of their National Guard, and the federal government activating them in their own borders without consulting or working with the state's governor is ineffective and dangerous. Quote, further threatening to send the U.S. Marines into American neighborhoods undermines the mission of our service members, erodes public trust, and shows the Trump administration does not trust local law enforcement. It's important we respect the executive authority of our country's governors to manage their National Guard, and we stand with Governor Newsom, who has made it clear that violence is unacceptable and that local authorities should be able to do their jobs without the chaos of this federal interference and intimidation." end quote. So once again, that is a letter signed by every single Democratic governor in the country as we're continuing to follow this situation very, very closely. Donald Trump was asked today if he would invoke the Insurrection Act. He essentially said that it depends on whether or not there's an insurrection. That is an actual statement from the President of the United States, who just 5 years ago incited an insurrection against the United States of America after losing the results of the 2020 presidential election. But we are continuing to follow this situation very, very closely here in LA. We actually have some more breaking news coming in here. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, in addition to that letter that has just been posted, has released another letter formally requesting that the Trump administration rescind, essentially, the unlawful deployment of troops into the city of Los Angeles. This is directly from the governor of California to the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, tonight. This is a continuing developing situation as protesters have officially blocked off the 101 freeway in Los Angeles, standing off with police officers and law enforcement as this situation continues. Once again, those are peaceful protesters. We should be clear about that, because there essentially is this assertion, this thought, this notion essentially, that the reason that the National Guard had to be sent in, the reason that law enforcement is having to escalate tensions essentially, is because protesters are getting violent. That is not the case here. As you just heard in that interview with Ali, we are watching peaceful protest and essentially law enforcement inciting protesters to become violent. Follow along here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show for more consistent reporting and updates. If you'd like to support my work financially, as this is independent journalism, you can support us here at either one of these places, as independent journalism is crucial to be funded. So we do appreciate your donations and your paid subscriptions. You can also be sure to follow me on Blue Sky and Substack at TJPS News for more consistent reporting and updates. You can also become a paid subscriber to my Substack at TJPS News for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. I will see you again very, very soon, continuing to stay up to date on this live coverage here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show.